and welcome to Board Game Tutorials. I'm Cymrych Hughs from Blue Hand Gamers, and today we're going to go over the basics of Scythe. Scythe is a 1 to 5 player game made by Stonemaier Games. And it's based in an alternate history of our world, where after the First Great World War, it didn't end the way we originally thought it did. And in this alternate history, during the war, there was the Factory, and they supplied all the factions of Europe with large armored mechanized devices that they could use to fight against the rival factions. And in some cases they were made out of military equipment, and in other cases out of farm machinery. But the minis themselves are very cool. In Scythe, all players take on the role as a leader for their faction. Now, as the leader, you have to spread your influence and grow your wealth over all of the other factions participating in combat in order to take control of the land around the factory. But first, as always, let's see a little bit of quick setup. This is a competitive game where all players are competing to see who can get the most wealth, the most endgame points. And there's one very specific way to end the game, and that is whenever somebody places all 6 of their victory stars. At that point, the game will end, and you'll proceed to end game scoring. Now, there are 6 ways to score at the end of the game. One way is whatever coin you have on you at the end of the game. Whatever coin you own, that is the first way to score points. Next, you refer to the track on the left side of the board. This is your popularity track. Every faction has a popularity heart. And every so many points, you go into the next bracket of value. So anywhere between 0 to 6 popularity, you're only in the first tier. These 3 things for endgame scoring only count as tier 1 value. Once you reach the 2nd tier, or even the 3rd tier, those values increase. But for now, we're just going to go over what they are. This symbol right here is a star. This indicates however many stars you have on the board. For objectives gained, you will gain whatever value tier or whatever value in this tier your coin is worth, your stars are worth. So if you have 4 stars and your tier is 3 coin, that adds up to 12 coins. Next up is a hexagon. This symbolizes every area on the map. In this case, every area you control. That means workers, your character, any buildings you own that are unattested or unopposed, those all count for ownership. And for every one of those lands you control, in this case, tier 1 would get you 2 coins. And lastly, this circle with 4 different colors quadranted into it that symbolizes a resource. This endgame scoring shows 2 of those, which means for every 2 resources, doesn't matter what ones they are, you score whatever your tier 1 value is. In this case, 1. After all of that's done, you have one final way of scoring points. I apologize, I said 6 ways to score. There are 5. That is my bad. But anyway, your structure bonus. There are 6 different structure bonuses to choose from, and during setup, you randomly choose one. After all of that, whoever has the most wealth built up is the winner. During the beginning of the game, you have a stack of player boards and a stack of faction boards. Your player boards are all different, and they will have different positions for all of these, such as your move/gain, your trade, your produce. They will be in different positions on your faction board, as well as the bottom half of your card has a second ability a second action you can use. These will also be random and have different costs and rewards. You'll pass these out randomly, face down. Your faction, there are 5 factions in the base game, and they all have their own unique ability, which will be located in the top right, and they all start with their own unique number of power and action cards. So let's go over a brief rundown of what all of your actions are that are available to you. So on this player board, my first action I have available is Bolster, which gives you the power icon. Your power token is this here. On the beginning of the game, you will place your power token on the track according to this number here on your faction board. In this case, it's only 1. Now on this player board, your first action is Bolster. A red pay means that is the cost you have to pay in order to perform this action. The green is what you gain from that action. In this case, you pay 1 coin and you gain 2 power. So after gaining 2 power, you move your power token up by 2. This slash means instead of doing this side, you can instead do that side. This is the action card symbol. So instead of bolstering your power, you would instead grab 1 action card. Now on the bottom of my card, I have Upgrade. This is again your cost, in this case 3 oil. Once you pay the 3 oil, you gain the upgrade ability, which allows you to move any one of these cost or production pips down to your cost on the bottom. So once I obtain this upgrade ability, I can, let's say I want to move more than 1 person, more than 2 people. So I upgrade this black pip here, and I can put it on anywhere. I can take it from anywhere on top and put it anywhere on bottom. Also, since I've performed the upgrade ability, I have 3 coins posted. So as a reward, I get to grab 3 more coins. Next, I have the produce action. These are all workers. When I produce more workers, they go from left to right and get placed back on the board. And the reason that is, as you produce, you unlock cost. So instead of this being a free produce action, you then have to pay the cost. For every one of these hexes you have, if you upgrade, you can get a 3rd. But for every one of those hexes you have available, you can produce anywhere you have a worker. Now, each hex on your player board indicates 1 hex on the board itself. If I have 1 person here, I can produce in this area. It doesn't matter how many workers I have there, this area itself is what produces. If I have 3 people here, during my production, I produce here and I gain 3 metal. And since I'm allowed to produce in 2 different areas, I can produce in a second area. In this case, I only have 1 worker. I will gain 1 oil as well. Now the bottom of this one is deploy. Since I use this action, you'll always go from the top down to the bottom. Now that does not mean if I choose this action, I have to take the top or I have to do the bottom. I could only do the top or only do the bottom, or in very, very rare cases, none of them. But in this case, I produced, I got 3 metal, and at the bottom I can spend 3 metal in order to deploy one of my mechs, and at the same time gain 2 more coins. So when I deploy a mech, I choose any one of these 4, and I place them on the board where I have one of my workers. When you place a mech, you unlock an ability. Speed gives you +1 movement for your characters or mechs. Notice worker is not on here because these abilities do not count for your workers. Riverwalk will show you 2 different zones you are allowed to move to across a river. For the Saxony Empire, once I unlock Riverwalk, I can move from any zone to either a forest or a mountain. So when I deploy, this has to go on an area with one of my workers, and I unlocked the Riverwalk ability. So I'll place him here with my other workers. And we'll go into Riverwalk in just one moment. Our next action is move or gain. Since I upgraded, it allows me to move 3 separate people instead of just 1. Now since this move action icon is in one single square, that means you can only move one thing 1 time. When you use a separate square, you can move another thing 1 time. And in this case, I upgraded so I can move a 3rd thing 1 time. Or I could forego all of that and just gain 1 coin. So since I've unlocked the Riverwalk ability, let's go into a few things. Anytime you gain resources, they actually go on the board. Now when you move a worker, you can move any number of resources that they have in their same space with them. Your main character can also move off your home base to any of the adjacent zones. And lastly, when you move a mech warrior that has workers in that space, you can carry them with you. And since I have the Riverwalk, I can cross this river here to the forest across the way. And since I'm taking workers, they can also take those. So mechs can carry people, people can carry goods. When you carry those extra workers with you, that does not consume any more move. They're hitching a ride as the mech moves itself. And on the bottom of this, we have build. In this case, it would cost me 3 wood, which I do not have at this time, but we can take the build action. When you take the build action, you're allowed to take any one of the buildings. You have the the monument, the mill, the mine, or the armory. You can take any one of those and place this on any one of the areas of the map that you currently have a worker. Now the armory, once this is unlocked and placed on the board, it gives you the power symbol. So every time you take this action, you also gain more power. The monument has the popularity icon, which means anytime you take this action, you gain a bonus popularity. The mine allows you to place a mine entrance, and this mine entrance can connect to any one of the 6 mines on the main board. Now, when moving through mines, a mine entrance that you built or the mines on the board are all considered adjacent to one another. So that'll only cost you 1 movement. And lastly, we have the mill. Well, the mill can be a little bit confusing, but what this means is when you take the produce action, it's a free zone that automatically produces as if this mill was a worker. And the last action we have available is trade. In this case, I can pay 1 coin and get any 2 resources I want. Again, when you gain resources, in this case the trade, I'll take wood and oil, and I can place these anywhere I want as long as I control that area with a worker. If I don't want the trade, instead, I can gain popularity. And then at the bottom, we have enlist. In this case, I would pay 4 food in order to enlist one of these recruitment cylinders. Now, each one of these recruitment cylinders has a different meaning. I mean, they're all 4 the same, but you have a 1-time bonus. Once you enlist, you take one of those cylinders and place it on one of your 4 1-time bonus icons. So I can place this and gain 2 power, 2 coins, 2 popularity, or 2 combat action cards. Also, you'll notice you see another symbol down here. In this case, the action card. What this means, anytime yourself or the player to your left or right performs the enlist action, you gain this reward. So if I had the upgrade enlist, and I had gained my 1-time bonus for that, from now on, when I take an upgrade action, or the person to my left or my right takes an upgrade action, I will gain the listed bonus. For upgrade, that would be power. And that's all the actions we have on our player board. And you'll also notice this little section here has some numbers. This indicates how many objective cards you start the game with, how much popularity you start the game with, and how many coins you start the game with. And this number here is for initiative. This declares who starts the game, who the first player is. And when it comes to the initiative, the lower the number, the lowest number present gets the first player. So to clarify territories, wherever you see the metal icon, that is a mountain. The food icon are for farms. The oil icon are for snowy tundras. Wood are forests. The meeple icon are for workers, and they are in villages. You also have the rivers, which you cannot move through unless you have Riverwalk. Lakes, which you cannot move into unless your faction-specific abilities allow it. And the factory. Now you'll notice this symbol on the factory shows what looks like an area control hex and 2 smaller hexes behind it. That means for endgame scoring, the factory counts as 3 separate territories. So whenever you do your scoring, factory counts as triple. Now, when you make your character go to the factory space itself, you take all of the factory cards that are present and you get to look through them. What these are additional actions you can take. And as the first player there, you get the pick. You choose whatever action that you think is the best, and they all have different costs, different gains. But every one of these factory cards at the bottom has a single move action where you get to move 2 points. So when we choose our factory card, we place it right next to our player board so that later on we can take that action. Now when it is your turn to take an action, you have this little action meeple here, this little action token. When you take an action, you place this action token on the action you're taking. Then you perform your action from top to bottom. When it is your turn again, you must choose a separate action that does not have your token on it. Also, when moving your character onto an area with one of the encounter tokens, that means you are allowed to draw the top encounter card. Now, the way Scythe does this is they don't really tell you a story in words, they tell you a story with a picture. And then based on what you see in the picture, you have 3 separate choices to make. Now, when you're playing, you are allowed to negotiate with other players. If I see the red player is getting a little too close to my area, I can tell him, listen, leave me alone, and I can pay you a little coin. You can be specific about leave me alone for 5 turns, I'll give you 5 coins. Don't fight me this round, I'll give you 3 coins. But when it comes to negotiations, you're only allowed to negotiate with coin. You cannot give other players your resources or your mechs or structures, nothing like that. It has to be coin value only. So let's go over objectives. You have a tracker here with all the different objectives you can complete in order to place your victory stars. At any time you accomplish all 6 of your upgrades, meaning all 6 of your pips are on the top, now are on the bottom, you accomplish the upgrade objective. So you can place your upgrade star there. Another one is once you have accomplished deploying all of your mechs. Again, you immediately place your star. At any time you build all 4 of your buildings, that's right, another star. Next up, the enlist. If you have all 4 of your enlistments completed, that's another star. If at any time you have all 8 of your workers on the board, every player will start with 2 objectives. Once you complete this, end of my turn, I have 3 mountain territories. I will say I've completed my objective. Your second objective card will get discarded because you can only complete 1. And of course, claim your star. Now, for combat, you can win a victory star for 2 combats. Let's check that out real quick. When you go into combat, whoever the attacker is and whoever the defender is will gain one of these. You will secretly choose a value. Now, whatever your power is on the power tracker is what you're allowed to use for combat. Let's use 4. Well, we'll symbolize that by moving it to the 4. So I have got 4 power selected, and you can use action cards as well. You get 1 action card for every mech or character you control in battle. But for the sake of combat, we're going to say I only have the 1. Now you add up whatever power you're going to spend with the card, and that is your overall power. When you've decided your power, and your opponent has decided theirs, you will then display what card you're using and what power you're spending. The card will get discarded, and the power you have placed on your dial will also get moved down. Whether you won or lost, you will always lose whatever power is on your combat dial. So after you're done, if you won the combat, whether you're the attacker or the defender, you get to claim a victory star for combat. Now, if you are the defender and you lose, and you spent at least 1 power, you are allowed to claim a free action or a free combat card. So moving on, after combat, we have popularity. You'll notice at the very top of the popularity track, there is a star. The moment you reach that star, you get to place one of your victory stars on the popularity board. The same thing for power. The moment your power gets to 16, you can place one of your victory stars. Now, the moment all 6 of your victory stars are on the board, the game will immediately end. At this point, this is where you go over your end game scoring to find out who's the winner. You count up how many coins you have. You count up whatever your popularity tier is worth for how many stars you have on the board, how many territories you own, how many double set of resources you own, and lastly, however many structures meet the bonus. You count all that up, add it up, and whoever the highest is the winner. But that's the basics of Scythe. This is one of my favorite games, and I really hope you all enjoy it as well. Come by next week, and maybe we'll have the playthrough up and ready for you. Have a good night.